So Mike joined the group in February 2013. So this is your 6th year in the group. So we love having you, Mike. You've been always an active member and part of leadership. We're thrilled he's here presenting today. Mike, take it away.
Very good. So I always knew that I wanted to be an artist from about as long as I can remember. And I originally started off in fine art and at the university. But I thought my instructors were flakes, and I could not make any more papier-mâché sculptures or clay coil pots. And so I finally discovered that there was a commercial art program in Milwaukee, but that required that I had to travel 90 miles a day for 2 years, and which I did do, Milwaukee area, MATC, and even though it was 90 miles for 2 years, I had perfect attendance, straight A's, and I had the most outstanding graduating portfolio of all the graduating schools that particular year. My first job was with Simplicity Lawn and Garden. They make lawn tractors and snow blowers, and they taught me how to read blueprints and how to use applied geometry to draw technical parts. This is actually fancy compared to what Simplicity had. You draw a lot of cotter pins and washers and bolts, and it was not very exciting. So I went to the university at night and I started studying stone lithography with a master Tamarin printer for a number of years, and I also started studying art history, and I wrote a very good term paper on surrealism that my professors told me was the best undergraduate paper they ever read, and they kept it on. And so these, I'm actually drawing with a waxy crayon and actually drawing and printing from Bavarian limestone. And so I did this for a number of years. And then I switched jobs. When I worked for Simplicity, I had to travel 60 miles a day. Getting the job at Harley Davidson, it was only 6 miles a day, and they increased my salary by 50%. But it was fun, and it was more exciting, it was more of a challenge, but still technically, motorcycles, when you get down to component parts, it's still a lot of hardware. It's not that much different than a lawnmower. And so it was around this time that I met Kay, and we got married, and we moved to Colorado, and I got to start working at Ball Aerospace. This is where the technical part really got fun. I got to work on laser communication devices and infrared telescopes. This is a fast steering mirror for a Defense Department mirror that locates and tracks ICBMs coming at us from other countries.
Mike, I'm sorry, I think that
That's top secret, isn't it?
that's actually the backside of a lawnmower.
Yes, you got me. This is actually a deep space telescope that, I won't go into the details, but you can see all the electronics and all the steering packages and all the actuaries and stuff. It actually moves 10,000 times a second, and it is also a Defense Department related thing. These are 2 concepts for the 9-foot bearings on the, for the proposed, for the International Space Station that rotates the solar panels. And remember, there's no computers yet. We're drawing all this stuff with T-squares and pencils and erasers and plastic triangles and French curves. And so, but it was also around this time that CAD came on, and computers, and this work all went to CAD operators, which I was not. So I started Lightspeed Commercial Arts. The art department at Ball dwindled from like 18 people down to like 3 people in a very short period of time. So I still did get to do some product illustration for companies. This is a robotics piece of cleaning equipment. This I did for Xerox Corporation. They actually flew me to California for the afternoon to look at a mock-up of the machine. But I mostly drew all this stuff from blueprints. Most of this stuff does not exist, just on paper. There's me airbrushing. This was a repercussion device for Ingersoll Rand that helps unstuck drill bits that are trapped underground when the hole collapses. And then I started doing a lot of branding. I started doing a lot of logo design, and this is where I really began to shine. I've won over 30 awards of excellence, both national and international, for my logos. And it's one of my passions. I really love the thought process behind it. So, sorry if I'm going a little too fast. And then I also got to do some hardcore technical things. I did this mostly myself. It's 1,300 pages of formatting, 700 illustrations, 400 photographs. It took me about a year to do it. And what wasn't really hard, it wasn't so much the technical drawings, because they were mostly flat schematics. It was formatting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of numbers of tables of chemical mud strength and chain strength and downhole trips when they have to change out pieces of hardware. And when we OCR scanned this document from the original, it ran all these numbers together into one solid number going on into infinity. And so I had to sit there for weeks adding tabs, the appropriate spots, and hard returns and page returns. And it was, I almost thought I was going to get carpal tunnel. And then I met up with some nanotechnology scientists. I prepared all of the artwork. I only illustrated about a quarter of them, but I had to prepare all the artwork for CRC Press out of New York City that's printing the book. And so I had to make sure all the images were CMYK color mode, the correct scale, type is converted to PAS and stuff. And about 2 weeks after we submitted this work to CRC Press, they came back and said, "We never had this happen before. We never had anybody ever give us perfect artwork. We usually have to allow three weeks to play catch up and get all these files right and that." So anyway, that was pretty cool. And then I also met up with some down at Spaceport America in New Mexico. There were some aerospace companies. I wanted to say it's not all about NASA anymore, and they were flying science experiments for CU into zero gravity space aboard a recoverable rocket that was traveling at Mach 5.5. And so part of the promotion, they loaded ginseng and gotu kola and vitamin C and flavorings, dry ingredients, hard packed into these rockets up into space, and then they recovered them in the White Sands Desert, and then they brewed this energy drink and this enhanced water beverage like this.
Marketing.
Oh yeah, it was just a promotional item, but these were actually served in the Congressional Congress in the cafeteria. And then I don't remember my transition. Anyway, I think it was around this time that between 2009, 2010, 2011, the recession hit. I did not have any projects for a really long time. All this work kind of went away. Even my core clients just collapsed in size down to like 20% of the original size. And financially, I was really struggling for a while. But part of my coming out of that whole thing is I got back into my fine art again. These are airbrush watercolors. I was taking my old technical skills, from 20 years ago and reapplying them to fine art. And then, since I joined TRP about 6 years ago, I also stepped up to another level. I didn't just win awards of excellence. I started winning the best of the category, the best of the best, the single one. So in 2013, I won Best Use of Typography for the Sweet Greens logo and the Sweet Greens font. The next year, I won the Best of Category for a logo usage guide for the town of Mead. This was a sample page from there. Here's another sample page. The following year, I won the Best of Category for corporate environmental graphics. I built this in 1/10 scale in Illustrator, and then the hallway was so narrow, I couldn't use a projector like this to put it up, so I went to Rocky Mountain Blueprint and had them printed as cheap as they could on vellum at actual size, and I taped it on a wall, and then they went through, at night, or in the daytime, I would come and I would apply the blue tape, and at night the painters would come and they painted, and I would go back the next day and take all the blue tape off. And then the images were, they made 3D software. So it was 3 of their images printed on aluminum, and then they were floated on these little metal cages, so they looked like they were actually kind of floating down the hallway. And then the following year, I won Best of Category for Photography for this collage that I did of my addiction recovery story. And then in 2017, for my colored pencil drawing Momentum, And also right around the same time that I joined TRP, because I volunteered to do a free talk to the Boulder Writers Alliance, the assistant dean to the School of Advanced Engineering and Applied Science was there, and she liked my infographics so much, she got me an exclusive contract with a university-wide confidentiality agreement. And so I do these complex infographics for the engineers and the scientists. The first one that came to me, they said, we want you to diagram the cumulative effects of uncertainty factors. And I said, what? And so I had to do with going from the idea of a nanotechnology component of binding things in these ovens, and developing it into a component, and then into a battery, and then like into a car for existence. But the important part of the diagram is this pink part that has to do, I guess, in manufacturing, chaos and uncertainty actually have to be planned for because they're part of the process. And I could not figure out that part of the diagram, but then I ran into this Napoleon's, one of the original infographics from 1869, which is about Napoleon's march from Paris into Moscow. And it shows all these different things within that diagram. And so that was kind of the trigger for me. Our chaos was getting, ours was growing. Napoleon's army was shrinking from freezing and starvation. This is earthquake people. These are different study groups that are studying the unintended effects of fractal drilling induced earthquakes, and what types of data they're communicating and how they're communicating it. And the thing about these proposals that are going to the National Science Foundation, they're often extremely dictated. Like, you have 3 pages, you can only use 10-point type and 12-point lettering, and space is very valuable, and so these diagrams become very valuable to them. This is about drones and rovers that are underground in the 4 different megahertz systems of how they can communicate to each other and share photos and data underground. This one has to do with supercharging water so that it can crack the oil that's trapped in oil shale to use less water. I could get much more technical, but this is a micron size. This is for personalized medicine. It's a micron size biosensor that is put into a cancer patient that is preloaded with the 26 different chemotherapy agents, and it measures the cellular die-off to figure out which 3 or 4 chemotherapy agents would be the best cocktail that they can make for you as an individual. I'll skip that. And then, also around the same time I joined TRP, I met Steve Henry. He had 20 years in Hewlett-Packard, and he's an amazing coder. I did not grow up with coding. I kept avoiding really cool websites because I was afraid I didn't know how to code them. And I did not have to avoid that anymore. As a matter of fact, the first 2 projects we did were probably like $8,000 websites. Oops. And then, 3 years ago, I got back into fine art photography, and I just really, really found a passion here. I'm not an equipment guy. My camera's not that particularly good. I use my iPhone a lot, but I just have a passion for poetry and for fine art, and oops, sorry, didn't mean to go so fast.
We have about a minute left.
Okay, and then that takes us to today, where I am today. Just yesterday I got these 3 drafts of my new, the first time publishing book, where I'm getting closer to actually merging my fine art and my commercial art and my knowledge of printing. And I'm going to start taking pre-orders because I don't have any money to buy bulk, but I found an amazing deal where I can actually just order 100 books and I can actually make a profit. And okay, I'll open it up to questions.
All right, we have 30 seconds for questions.
I don't have a question, but I'm just thankful I don't have to understand anything scientific for what I do. And now I know that French curve is something different than I was thinking of.
Right?
I had a vision of that too.
Thanks for running that for us, Mike.
Any other quick questions from
Kate.
Kate?
I just want to say how brilliant of a person I think you are, from being able to capture what it is that businesses and individuals want to show in their marketing, in their logos, to understanding the scientific notions behind all these things. I'm so impressed. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's a great
Thank you.
presentation.
Ultimately, I'm a visual problem solver, and it comes across in many different ways. Jim?
Just a quick one, if there's anybody in this room that isn't following Mike on Facebook, you need to do, because his images and the poetry that he puts together with them on his Facebook page are just really inspirational. I look forward to them every day.
All right, thanks so much, Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mike, how do we sign up? How do we order this fabulous
Just come
book?
see me. I meant it for this, actually, that people could actually, oh yeah, some people have.
Okay.
And then if you want a PayPal invoice, I can do that, or take cash. And what I'm waiting for is I'm waiting for my ISBN number, and I'm hoping that a few people will look at it and write testimonials, because I have to create the back cover yet, but for the most part, it's pretty good.
All right, fantastic job, Mike. Excellent.
Thank you.